Hello, my name is Blazej Floch and today we'll see how to set up Python environments to work with Ion Fusion. So what are the ways to access Fusion with Python? The first way is to use the internal interpreter which is embedded in Fusion 6.1. A second method would be to embed a global 3.1 Python installation inside of Fusion. And the third method would be to use an external Python interpreter and connect with PyOnScript to Fusion. Let's take a look at the differences of these methods. I have started Fusion 6.1 and now I go to the console and press the Python button. Now I've changed the console to a Python environment. I import the system library and print the system version. This will show us the Python version of this environment, which is 3.1.1. This Python environment is shipped inside of Fusion 6.1. However, it is not a default Python installation. Some modules are missing. For example, if I want to import the tcar-inter GUI module, it will print out an error. So how can we use a default Python 3.1 installation inside of Fusion? First of all, go to the Python website, python.org. Download Python 3.1.2, which is the closest version to 3.1.1, and install it. Once you have done this, to your Fusion install path. Delete or rename the lib folder and the Python 3.1.dll. Now let's restart Fusion. Change the console to Python. And let's import the sys module and print the sys version. Now we have our 3.1.2 Python environment embedded into Fusion. Also, we now can import tcar-inter because it's included in the default installation. The good thing about this method is you can now install libraries or modules into your Python 3.1 installation and they will be accessible from Fusion. However, you are tied to version 3.1 of Python. What if your environment is set up with a different version of Python, like 2.6? I've also installed Python 2.6 from the Python website, and now let's go to the Ion website. Here you have the PyOnScript library for Python 2.6 and Python 3.1 in 32 and 64 bits. These Python libraries will allow you to access Fusion from this specific Python environment. So download and install the PyOnScript library. And now let's start Python 2.6. I import the PyOnScript library, and by convention I will import it as Ion. Now I have to make a connection to Fusion. So here's Fusion, here's my Python 2.6 interpreter. If I print this Fusion variable, I can see that I have a working connection to Fusion from my local computer. If you have troubles connecting to Fusion, please check your firewall, because Fusion and Python need open ports to communicate with each other. Now that we have a connection to Fusion, let's create a new comp. We will store it in the comp variable. As we can see, the comp is automatically generated in the background. Here we are at composition 2. Also, we now have access to the comp variable and can create a background. Once you have set up these two variables, your Python interpreter will work similar to the console. Here I've already have these variables and can say comp background. if I switch to Python, of course. And this will create the same thing. So now we have seen 3 methods to connect to Fusion with Python. To recap, I'd say, the internal interpreter is great because it's available by default and it's integrated into Fusion. But it's tied to version 3.1 of Python. Also, you will have to have multiple Python environments if other applications rely on Python, because this embedded Python environment is not a standard installation, and it doesn't have all default modules. Use the internal interpreter if you have small scripts which don't depend on third-party modules, and you want to share the scripts with the community, because scripts which will work in your embedded Python interpreter will work on all Fusion installations. If you embed a 3.1 interpreter, you can use a default Python installation inside of Fusion. It's integrated, but you can also use it as a shared Python environment, because it is a standard installation with all standard modules. However, you're still tied to version 3.1 of Python. I recommend this for bigger Python projects, and if you use third-party modules, it will be easier to maintain a default Python installation. You can also connect to Fusion with an external interpreter through PyOnScript. This works with many more versions of Python. You can have a shared Python environment, and it's a default standard installation, but it's not integrated into Fusion. If you depend on other Python versions or want to integrate Fusion into your working environment, or you want to share environments with other applications, this is the way to go. For example, you could share the same Python 2.6 interpreter with Fusion and Maya.